All right. Next up is the approval of minutes. I assume everyone has gotten the minutes and read them, of course. Are there any suggested edits?
Not here.
This is just my name. My name is spelled with an A, McCormack.
Thank you.
Is that all we have for edits?
They seem all right to me. I'd like to move that we approve them as written.
I would like to second that.
We have a second. Okay. I'm just going to, for all the votes, I'm just going to go roll call. It's easier. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Leo?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
And me, aye as well, Patrick. Good. All right. First up, we're going to go over the overview of the balance projections, which Jackie has.
Thank you. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I don't want to go over too much because I know you have a heavy agenda. I just want to update you a little bit on the projections after last week. Mm-hmm. So if you take a look at the screen, you can see that I did discuss with our finance director, Jamie Colon. We got some updated guidance from the DOR, the Department of Revenue. I don't think this will be any kind of final guidance, but we also are hearing from the Community Preservation Coalition that we should expect a healthy match for fiscal 22. So we felt comfortable staying conservative, but moving the state match up to 20%. At this point, we have never had a year dip below a 30% match, but obviously we don't want to put ourselves in a position to have allocated funds to a particular project and then not see that revenue come in during the following fiscal year. And with, so the current money that's coming in will be distributed in November as part of fiscal 22. So it may see that we see a more conservative fiscal 23 for CPC, and that's trending with what we're going to probably see for state aid and other forecasting as well. We've forecasted conservatively for 22 across the board, but 23 is looking where we may see a more intense cut from the state. And it may be where we see that housing market start to downturn, which directly contributes to the registry of deeds fees, which contributes to the trust. So we're looking at a conservative 20% state match. We've also slightly adjusted the surcharge over the last few years as we've seen those dollars come in. So we're forecasting about $390,000. For fiscal 20, it was about $400,000 to $410,000 off the top of my head. I can grab that figure in a moment. And that includes the net the net surcharge after, exemptions for seniors, the blind exemption, all of those exemptions that trigger exemption from CPA, as well as that first $100,000 off the top. So we feel that this is a conservative projection, but we think that it's makes sense for what we've seen in the community the last few years. So that's the projection at this point. Does anyone have any questions? No, okay. So that puts our policy area totals at the following fund balances: 830,000 and change for open space, 153,000 and change for historic preservation, 153,000 for community housing, and 319,100 in budgetary reserve. And as folks may remember from a few years ago, when we got additional money from a prior fiscal year from the state match, we do have to allocate that money at town meeting before we can use it towards projects. So at this point, this is a projected revenue allocation and admin expense for your fiscal 22 recommendation to town meeting. It allocates the balance of the state match to the 3 policy areas from 21. It adds the allotments for the state match for the 22 projection to each of the policy areas. It puts the balance of the 22 revenue into the budgetary reserve so that if the town were to have a special town meeting and CPC were to receive a project and wanted to allocate those funds within that fiscal year, they could do so. And then it includes $8,500 for administrative expense, which at this time includes our coalition dues, which I expect to go up soon. They haven't gone up in a couple of years, and I think a lot of those types of dues are going up. So regardless, they're still in the $1,500 range. This would also cover 8 meetings of minutes. It would cover 2 hours a week at my hourly rate. It would incur the legal ads that we do on a regular basis, which this year for 2 notices in the Chronicle cost just over $400 for the newspaper requirement. And then any other administrative costs at this point, but that $8,500 would cover all those necessary costs with a little room to spare. And that's not an increase over last year. That's a static amount at $8,500. So that's for you for now. I have these slides available for later in your discussion when you want to reference them again. I just wanted to give you this quick update to start.
And will this slide be included in the minutes as well so that we can reference it?
Yeah, I did. I think I CC'd Catherine Tinsley when I sent this out earlier today. Catherine, if you did not get this, will you let me know and I can certainly send it now?
Okay.
And we just want to make sure that the budgetary reserve is updated. It was previously 305,000. It's 319,100. Just want to make sure that.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. So
are there? Sorry.
I'm sorry. No. Jackie was just going to ask if there are any questions, right?
Mr. Chairman, I have one question.
Sure.
Does this include funds that were previously allocated that have not been spent and we are anticipating to be returned to the fund?
Not at this time. I would say we are in, we did hear an update from the museum last week that they might be returning a couple thousand. And I would say there's maybe a couple thousand between all of the other projects that might be returned. It's a bit of a counting our chickens before they hatch moment, where we don't know exactly how much might be returned. And if we do, it'll be in the low thousands of dollars.
Okay, fair enough. So it's not material. I understand. Thanks, Jackie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, Jackie?
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, a question. Jackie, the 8,500 administrative funds, we've been appropriating that every year. Does every bit of that get spent?
No, Leo. I would say we're typically spending between $6,000 and $7,500 a year from that account. As legal ad prices change, depending on the number of meetings that we have. But I would say that the 8,500 is a conservative max, and all of the money that's unspent administrative at the end of each year falls back into the general CPA.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Jackie and I did talk earlier about this figure. It may be increasing in the future, but for 2022, this is a good number.
Good. Thank you.
Sure. And I could actually we'll make a motion here. I move that we allocate the funds as shown on the screen to their reserve categories as shown and will be included in the minutes.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? Ready to vote. Okay. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Leo?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
And Patrick, yes, and I as well. All right. First piece of business down. All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry, just one question. I just want to clarify that your motion is to recommend these revenue allocations and the one admin expense to town meeting. I just want to make sure so that Catherine has it for the minutes, because that'll be what we include in the warrant book.
Yes, we recommend to town meeting these amounts for reserves and the administrative bucket. Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, so first up on our docket tonight is the town hall debt. So town hall debt is, we see it every year, the amount is $121,900. Is there any discussion on the town hall debt?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Leo.
I don't know if anybody here knows the answer, but if they do, I'd like to know. Interest rates are very low now. Is it possible to rewrite the debt and have the remaining, lock in the remaining balance at lower rates, or has that already been done, or is it possible to do?
I can answer part of that. It was refinanced 4 or 5 years ago, 2015.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it did bring it was a substantial savings. I believe we have 6 years left on the debt. And primarily we're paying just principal now, I believe. So I believe to write debt, you're talking about 30,000 in cost, if my memory serves me correctly. So it may be something that's worth looking into, but I don't think we're going to realize the savings, given we only have 6 years left.
Does anybody here know what the balance is?
So over the next 6 years, the payments go down a couple $1,000s a year. I believe it's less than $500,000 left, but
$500,000, okay.
renew our bans in May. We can certainly ask about there's another opportunity to refinance and save.
Can I ask a question? Does anybody know what the interest rate is now?
On this particular debt, Leo, I can pull it up in just a second. I can pull up the debt sheet for you.
I don't know what the interest rate is, and I don't know what the exact balance is. But if the interest rate is reducible because of the times, and the balance is enough, and it saves more than the $30,000, if it saves substantially more than the $30,000 it would cost to rewrite it, then it might be good looking into. If it doesn't, I understand that, like Patrick says, it probably costs $30,000 in fees to rewrite it, correct? So
that's what we looked at previously. We've talked about writing debt on other projects and decided against it. A lot of it was due to the upfront cost of the underwriting.
Correct. It might be something that we should look into.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Leo, just one quick answer.
Yeah.
Interest rate for this current project year is 2% interest at this time. But I can certainly, our treasurer collector manages our debt renewal every year in May.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of bands that we have to actively renew. So we are for bands most years right now while we have ongoing projects. I'm happy to look into it and provide an assessment to the CPC from our debt advisors.
If it's not a lot of trouble, but if the interest rate is as low as 2%, we're probably not going to get it much lower than that. With whatever the balance is, we have to save at least what more than what the upfront costs, because it's expensive to go to the trouble to do it too.
And I will say, Leo, the CPC portion of the debt, there's multiple debt payments for the town hall. The CPC portion is just for the portion of the project that was historically significant to the town hall.
Right.
This is not a full package of the town hall debt. This is just the CPC eligible.
I see.
But we can certainly add those numbers to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I personally think it could be very worthy to look at the current interest rate environment. And if this was refinanced in 2015, rates have come sky low. I mean, really, they've come way up from 2015 to now. Rates are substantially less right now. So it may be worth the exercise of taking a harder look at the overall financing package of the town. And obviously that's out of our purview tonight, but I think that'd be a worthy exercise to go through, Jackie.
I agree.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this request for town hall payment for our annual payment.
I'll second that motion.
So we're making a motion to recommend to town meeting.
Yeah. I'm sorry, right. I'd like to recommend at town meeting that we approve this this payment request.
I say,
And where it's coming from. So so it's coming from the historic reserve. So there's multiple pieces to the motion. The recommend the town meeting, the amount, and then where it's going to come from.
All right. I'll take it from the top. I'd like to recommend, or I'd like to make a motion that we approve this funding request from historic funds for the payment to the town hall financing to the town meeting. Is that relatively correct?
I believe so. Catherine, is that good?
Almost.
Catherine, tell me what you want me to say.
I should look up what we wrote last year. Hang on.
Okay.
Jackie, did that work for you? I mean, usually they're pretty standard.
It did, and I'm gonna just share my screen to try to make it easier. So
Thank you, Jackie.
you're gonna fund it, the town hall debt at the full amount from the CPA fund for historic preservation.
Okay.
And
Correct.
I'll add that as we go, and I'll change the amounts so that we have this as like our working record. I'm sorry, it's harder to do this on Zoom than it is in years past because there's just such a complex motion.
Right. I understand. Jackie, what would we do without you? Thank you.
You would get along just fine.
Hardly.
I have faith in this group.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Does anyone second it?
I did.
Oh, you did. Perfect. Leo seconded. Any discussion? We're good to vote. 1, 2, 3. Ready to vote. Elizabeth?
Aye.
Janet?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Leo?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
And Patrick, aye as well. Passed unanimously. All right. We'll go reverse order next time so that some people aren't on the hot seat. So the next item up is the West Wenham Higginson Park, and the application is for $15,000 for the project plan, the review of the site for potential improvement. Do we have any discussion of the open space and rec application?
I'd just like to say again, I'm a resident of West Wenham, and I think this is incredibly worthy survey and evaluation survey that's going to take place for this particular property that's woefully underutilized. I think it's money well spent. I think the residents of West Wenham would be well served by having something that's more fulfilling and more gratifying for West Wenham. And I'm repeating myself, but I think this is money well spent. So I'd be a big proponent for proceeding with this feasibility study.
Excellent. Thanks, Bill.
Bill, I would agree also. It seems to me like it's a piece of property that has been very underused. And I understand the rec department has done a little conversation about maybe skateboarding over there or whatever. I just think we need to take a look at, put the money in, and let's figure out how we can use it better.
Yeah. And the fact that this survey is collecting public input, I think is very valuable. And I don't want to forget, Barbara Locke's comment about the fact that if this turns out to be a dog park, I mean, we will have a lot of inflow from other towns to utilize this dog park. I mean, just down the street is the Wenham Lake and that Phillips Estate, and there are a lot of dogs in there. And I have a feeling that, while they have some financing alternatives, if it turns into a dog park, I think I'm putting the cart before the horse here. So let's just move forward with a feasibility study. I think it's money well spent, and I would be totally a big proponent of it. So I've said far too much.
And Peter Clay, I went over and checked it out because it's probably been like good 15 years since I was over there, and it's a nice property, and I think Yeah, spending 15K to figure out how to maximize its usefulness for the West Wenham residents, I think makes a lot of sense.
Excellent. Excellent.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I agree with my fellow committee members. I'd just like to ask a couple of questions. I'd like to see that park brought up to so it's just as nice as Pingree Park or any other park in the neighboring towns. The study, it says the study will also include identifying alternate funding sources. That means grants, I assume. I voted, I've been on the committee for quite a while, and I've voted for other studies in the past, okay? And other studies did the same thing, but when they identify other sources, you know, like I see one source here is, I never heard of it, but the Stanton Foundation. And I wonder who in the town does the town manager designate to apply for those funds, the Stanton Fund or any other fund that the study, the person who does the study will recommend? Who applies for those funds?
I believe it will be run through the open space and rec. Jackie, do you know, will they come to you to write the grant proposal, or will the consultant who does the study do that?
So the consultant who does the study will identify some of the grant opportunities, and I know the Open Space Committee at this time has already identified some of the grants they'll be eligible for once this feasibility study is complete. I believe the actual grants will be written by the Open Space and Recreation Coordinator for the town. So that position is currently vacant since Missy Berry left, but we are working on filling that position, and I expect it should be, I don't believe it's been posted yet. Margaret's serving as the interim, but I expect that position will be posted and filled sometime this spring. So once the feasibility study, I believe Margaret Hoffman is currently working with Open Space, and she'll be guiding the new employee to the feasibility study. And we should have that new person on board by the time it's time to write the grants after the feasibility study.
You know, it's important because I see some of the towns, Ipswich is a good example. My God, they've got more open space and they've searched out and got grants for, and it's almost obscene how some towns get grants and we probably don't. I don't know. I know there's grants out there for the roads and public works. There's probably grants out there for cemeteries. There's grants out there for almost all the departments. And I suppose it's the highway commissioner that looks for that, the road grants, and it's the cemetery commissioner that looks for those grants. So I think it's important when Jackie, this is to you. It's important when we interview a new conservation commissioner or open space coordinator that we find out how their experiences have been in obtaining grants. So
yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I'll be sure to let Margaret know.
Good. And when we interview, I was involved last time interviewing an open space in conservation coordinator. So again, I'd like to be if I'm appointed. So, but thank you anyway. I think that's a point that's important.
Leo, Janet Burke, could I support that? I've been involved a little bit with grants as far as school systems go, and some, maybe Ipswich, I'm not aware of it, but I'd be willing to look at it. They may have a grant writer. Grant writers often take in more than their salary they're paid to come up with grants for the entire town. Just something that we might think about, or the town might think about. Or maybe, Jackie, that would have to do with the person that you're talking about maybe hiring by the spring. But oftentimes, I know that when I was involved in another town, the grant writer took in twice their salary for grants for the town, so it was certainly well worth doing.
Janet, I've heard of that too. I've heard of that too. But I would think that the head of each department would know the ins and outs of that department, and obtaining grants is one of them. Knowing what they need grants for and applying for those grants, I think would be an asset that each commissioner or coordinator, probably should have.
Well, Leo, I think you're right. Except I think just thinking a little bigger, we're such a small town. There's things we need to think about. Maybe it's not our purview, obviously, in the CPC, but maybe we need a grant writer who then speaks with each person, each department, cemetery, rec, whatever. And that person, maybe this is a dream on my part, I guess I'll say that we could possibly look bigger and say, maybe we should hire someone that does grant writing.
Janet, you're onto something big time. This is Bill Weiss. A grant writer is worth its weight in gold.
Definitely.
His or her weight in gold. And you're exactly right. You can have the divisions, the different departments know where to look for the grants and the different organizations that provide the grants, but having a grant writer that can write these very detailed, granular, grants, it's an art, it's a skill, it's a professionalism.
It is.
And they can write these grants that almost assures us a very high probability of receiving that grant. So it's you're talking about really it's a wonder, and they earn their salary multiple times over by the grants that they receive for the town. And I think you're onto something, Janet. I would highly recommend Jackie take this forward to the interim town manager and make that recommendation to have a grant writer for the overall town, and yet having the responsibility of seeking out which grants they should be applying to reside with the particular department that's applying for the grant.
And
I think you're onto something big time, Janet.
Without getting into a lot of details, I used to work in Manchester by the Sea, and a parent came to me about computers way back. Anybody on this committee remember TRS 80s back in the day, a long time ago?
Oh, yes.
And we wanted to get an Apple lab, and there was no money, blah, blah, blah. This parent, who was very clever, she and I wrote a grant that said X number of dollars, and the principal and the superintendent signed off, and school committee signed off on it, that if we got the grant, they would match the funds from the state. Well, they never thought we'd get the grant. But this woman, and I wrote this, I would give her more credit than myself. She knew exactly what to put in that wording. Yep. We got the grant, and we got this lab, which we never would, for all the right reasons. It's so doable. And I totally agree. I think we need to think a little bit bigger.
Mr. Chairman.
So I like the conversation. I like where
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
going.
just one sentence, please. I started a long conversation. Let me
Well, we have a long conversation to go.
I completely agree with Janet and Bill. And I would say we should hire a real good grant writer. And I hope he makes a lot of money when we pay him commission.
Good move, Leo. Good move.
All right. Is there anything else we want to discuss in terms of this application in front of us? So bring it back to West Wenham. So hearing none, let's move to a vote.
Has there been a motion?
Actually, no, first we need a motion.
Yes. I would move that we approve this funding or recommend this funding take place at the annual town meeting for funding out of the recreation and open space allocation for the tune of $15,000 for this feasibility study.
I second the motion.
Jackie, how'd I do?
Catherine, Jackie,
Got it.
good? Well,
Jackie's
good.
still with us? Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
sorry, I was giving you a thumbs up because I was typing so everybody could see.
Okay.
It was good.
We see the screen. All right, we're going to reverse the order of the vote. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to vote yes. Peter.
Aye.
Aye. Leo.
Yes.
Tom.
Yes.
Bill.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
And Elizabeth.
Aye.
Unanimous again. Wonderful. All right. So, and moving on, we're gonna change the order because the museum has a board meeting tonight. So, Kristen hopefully will be able to join us when her item comes up. So we're gonna move to the Affordable Housing Trust, and this is an application for
Mr. Chairman?
Excuse me. Yes.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. They did. I didn't want to interrupt your discussion. They are here if you wanted to stay in order.
Kristen is here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were having a nice discussion, so I didn't want to interrupt.
Yes, I am here, and also the president of our board, Kenan Anderson, is also here.
Hi, yeah, I'm here too.
Patrick, you are now muted also, so I'm trying to unmute you and it won't let me.
How's that?
Good.
I was just saying, welcome to Kenan. She's well known to the CPC. She was a member for a number of years. So welcome, Kenan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Wenham Museum is, their request is for $47,400. And I just want to relay, I've contacted the CPC Coalition, and they said if the building is on the historic register, the entire building, or the HDC, the Historic District Commission, weighs in and says that this historic resource is locally significant to the town, and they willing to attest to that, then this grant award can be made. And then also KP Law, I got the opinion from them on the community house HVAC and electrical work that we recommended to town meeting. So as long as we get, as long as there's a denotation from the HDC that this is a locally significant historical resource, this grant agreement would be would fall within the purview of the CPA, and we just need that letter from the HDC. So that said, would like to discuss the agreement. Anyone like to start discussion?
Discussion of the project?
Yes.
Grant?
I think yes.
I'd just like to ask a couple of questions, Ms. Noon.
Yes.
It's certainly a worthy cause. I mentioned that last week, and I'd like to ask a couple of questions. If we approve this 47 application, it'll bring to, in 5 years, almost $250,000. Do you picture your organization coming to us in the next 2 years for anything else other than an emergency?
Just to clarify your question, are you saying that CPC has awarded $250,000 to Wenham Museum? Or is that just historic preservation funding in general?
Historic preservation in the last 5 years. If we approve this $47,000, it would bring historic appropriations from our committee in the last 5 years to approximately what, 230,000 or something like that.
Leo, no, would be higher than $600,000-$700,000 because.
Oh no, I'm talking to other. not considering the town hall. Not considering the town hall. How much have we appropriated for the museum in the last 5 years? It's about 185, isn't it?
That could be. I'm not sure without
anyway,
actually.
The question is, Kristen, the question is, do you, if we appropriate this and the town meeting approves it, you'll have the air conditioners will be in excellent condition. Do you envision in the next 2 years any other applications other than probably a probable emergency?
Well, I can tell you as a museum and as an entity where preservation is one of our core functions, I think if there is a project that comes up that is an appropriate candidate for a CPA grant, we would probably consider filing an application. I can tell you at this moment, I don't have another project on the docket that I can tell you we're planning to do this year and this other thing next year. I know going back and looking at our kind of granting history, we are not at town meeting every year with a request. You know, we've probably been working about every third year or so. We've come forward
so you can't think of anything right now, like a roof or new windows or anything right now?
I don't have it right now, but I just, want to be like clear that if a project materializes, we may file again. I mean, I think we have to explore all possible areas of funding, whether it's a CPA grant or a Mass Historical Commission grant or any other available source. MCC, we do file as many applications as we can, and to the extent the project is eligible potentially for funding, we would file. And then it's my understanding it would be in the discretion of this committee as to whether or not to recommend the project to town meeting.
Kristen, thank you. And you've been there a while, and you're a good manager, and you can't think of anything right now. So that probably, unless it's an emergency, might not show up. But if it does, and you have to apply, certainly we're gonna consider it. We consider all the applications. But thank you anyway. Thank you for the time, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Kristen, am I correct that only the Claflin Richards House is on the National and State Register? Is that correct?
That's correct. The rest of the facility, which is basically a late 20th century building, is not.
Yeah. But as a historic resource, the Historic District Commission could denote it as a locally significant structure or resource.
They could, and they have in the past when we sought our funding for the digitization of the Benjamin Conant collection. The HDC chairman at that time did write a letter on behalf of HDC saying that that collection was significant to the culture and history of the town of Wenham. And I have reached out to Mr. Dana Bagnell, who is the current chair of that HDC per the town's website, to ask him, to write a letter of support for this application, stating that the collections served in the two collections that are housed in the two zones that would be served by these HVAC units are significant to the culture and history of Wenham. That would include our train collections, ones that are both, operating in the gallery, and the ones that are stored in display cases or exhibited in that lower gallery, which would be served by one of the units. And then in the second zone in Burnham Hall, in terms of historical resources, I did put together a memo that I believe should have been in your meeting packet for tonight regarding the post and beam and OG braces that are located in Burnham Hall that do come from Wenham's 1688 meeting house, which also, served as its church, the town's church at that point in time. And those are incredibly rare braces which are located in that space. They're permanently installed there, in addition to other uses we use in that room for temporary exhibits, educational programming, and so on and so forth.
I would just stress that the CPC coalition was very interested to make sure that the HDC says the structure itself, the building itself is significant. Not, he said that the artifacts I find them to be very important, but he says it's the structure because we're supporting the structure with these HVAC units.
I see. And I'll review that with Mr. Bagnell when we are able to connect. I did leave him a voicemail today and I tried him again. I know he's, you know, busy around and about town, but hopefully we'll connect by the end of the week. And, you know, I would understand if tonight's vote had to be contingent on receiving appropriate documentation from, you know, HDC to that effect. So.
And I would say there's no rush. It just has to be, you know, because we can always pull it at town meeting if not received. So you have time. It's not, you know, we don't need it tomorrow.
Okay. Right.
So, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to make a couple of comments. Subject to the notification or documentation that we are seeking that this is a historically significant building and structure, I do want to say that I'm impressed the way Kristen and her board have stepped up, and with a combination of Cultural Facilities Fund grant from the Massachusetts Cultural Council, a bequest, private donations, and general fundraising, they've done an excellent job at replacing three of the 5 units, as well as a dehumidifier, and that these particular units are now approaching a quarter of a century old. And I don't see there being any necessarily any economies of scale. As a matter of fact, there are probably diseconomies of scale if we were to fund one unit and not the other. So I would be a proponent of accepting and recommending that this request for funding be approved and put forth to the town meeting.
Why don't you make that a motion, Bill?
Well, let's let all the members speak.
Yeah, there may be some other commentary. Yeah.
And then we can get to the motion. Jackie, can you stop sharing your screen for me? I want to see faces. Thank you.
Yeah, that's better. There.
This is Elizabeth in the black screen. And as I expressed last week, I think funding the entire, or recommending funding for the entire grant is completely appropriate. And representing the housing authority, I would say with that experience, it's better to take care of these things earlier rather than later.
Excellent, thank you.
Peter Clay, I support exactly what Elizabeth just said.
Perfect, thank you, Peter.
Also in support. You know, I asked that clarifying question last week about economies of scale if we were to break it apart and do it, you know, over a period of time, but it seems like it makes sense to do both units at once.
And Janet Burt, one of the things that was brought up last week was bringing that crane in. That's a very costly piece of what has to be done. And I just think it economically makes sense to fund both of them.
Yeah.
Good. Anyone else? All right. Oh, Jackie, go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, just as a point of order for folks, before anyone makes a motion, I just want to note that after the allocation to the town hall debt, there will be a balance of $31,567 in the historic fund. So if this project was to be funded in full for informational purposes, you could fund $31,567 from the historic CPA fund, and then the balance of the $15,833 would come from the budgetary reserve, just in case you needed those numbers for whoever's going to make a motion.
And I just also wanted to chime in, if I can, Mr. Chairman, that I had noted in our past presentation that the museum does have a current grant agreement and preservation agreement in place with the town already relating to our FY18 CPA grant funded project. And if we can, we would like to include the same language that we negotiated with the town at that time in prospective agreements, or depending on, you know, advice of counsel if we're amending existing agreements or what have you. But I just wanted to mention that in case that was, again, as a point of order, necessary to be included in the vote and ultimately in the warrant article for town meeting.
So Jackie and I discussed this earlier today, and we would use the grant agreement as a template
Okay.
So the same, like the 29 years would be the same. And then the contingency on the HTC letter would be in the grant agreement as well. So
Okay.
it wouldn't be in this motion, but all, you know, that would all be attached and it would be the same.
Perfect.
Right, Jackie?
So if you want it to, if the CPC wants to instill the 29-year restriction and the receipt of the declaration from the historical commission, then you would want to include it in your motion to town meeting. The grant agreement is not negotiated by this body, but by the Board of Selectmen. So if it's something CPC specifically wants, you need to include it in the motion. I do have a note, but I recognize that I am not infallible. And if you wanted to be that specific, you would do so at this time in the motion. The select board will oversee the grant agreement.
Okay. So are you recommending that we, if it is to mirror that we do make the 29-year and HDC recommendation?
I'm not making any recommendation.
Nope.
I'm just letting you know if you want to do that, you have to do it in the motion. Otherwise, it'll fall on the select board after town meeting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let me try to tackle the motion then.
Yeah.
Good job. Thank you.
I move that the Wenham CPC recommend to town meeting that we allocate $47,400 to the Wenham Museum to replace the 2 HVAC units as noted in their application, of which $31,567 will come from the historic reserve, and the balance of $15,833 would come from the budgetary reserve, subject to a grant agreement that we recommend be 29 years, mirroring the prior grant agreement with the museum, and contingent upon receipt of a letter from the HDC citing the historical resource of the museum being locally significant to the town.
Wow.
Does that pass muster?
That was great. I'll second
Mr.
that.
Chairman. Woohoo, yes.
All right. Catherine, was that okay?
Yes, all set.
Excellent.
She's still getting it down. Hopefully
Did.
that was recorded.
No, I got it.
Okay.
All right. This time we're going to start the
Catherine.
voting from the middle. Tom,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Leo,
Yes.
Peter,
Aye.
Janet,
Aye.
Elizabeth,
Aye.
and Patrick is an aye as well. Another unanimous vote. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thanks
Thank
for coming.
you. Happy to do it. Yeah. All right.
See you at town meeting.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Moving along, our last application is from the Affordable Housing Trust in the amount of $300,000. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to clear something up for my point of information for myself, and it may be interesting to the rest of the committee. In the minutes last week, it reiterated the fact that it was noted that the developer of Spring Hill was required to supply affordable units. Okay. Now, it goes on to say that the developer is considering donating a lot to Habitat for Humanity, which may in turn come to the town to fund the units. Now, I see ourselves on Hull Street, there was nobody was required. No developer was required to give us 2 affordable. So Habitat worked with us and we got 2 units. But in this case, the developers were required. So it seems to me if the developer donates a lot and they think Habitat for Humanity is going to build it and we're going to subsidize humanity, that's not providing new affordables. So I think it's incumbent on the developer to supply affordables that conform to the building codes of the town of Wenham. Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Leo, can I just, I have a point of order from
go ahead.
Hoffman. Just want to make sure we're in line.
So Leo, I did speak with Margaret Hoffman today, and I just want to clarify one piece. So the way the original decision for Spring Hill Farm subdivision was written, this is before any of the current staff was here, was that they'd have to produce 2, but it would be very nice if they could do 3. So they're beholden to do 2 units, one of which is a remodel of an existing structure, and one of which they are currently in negotiations with Habitat for Humanity. The Habitat unit, they would donate the land to Habitat and have to provide a significant financial contribution to Habitat for the construction. The piece where Habitat comes into play is that Habitat would potentially seek funding from the AHT or the CPC. I don't know if they actually would, they could, because they'd be looking to come in for a friendly 40B to make it a 2-family. So the Habitat project would be for funding it to go to the 2-family construction, but Spring Hill Farm would still have to provide money to Habitat for the single family. So it would only be an extension of the 2-family where Habitat would be seeking funding from the town, from my understanding. They can't not just give the land to Habitat, they also have to give a significant financial contribution to Habitat for the unit. I just wanted to make sure that was
okay, that's clear to me, Jackie, and thank you for looking that up. But however, the only thing fuzzy in that whole presentation is what is the word significant mean in dollars? Does it mean 90%, 95%, or 25%? So that's one thing that I think that the developer ought to be held to a legitimate, responsible deal. Thank you.
Yep. And then Leo, just so you know, I was of the same mind when I was reading the minutes. I said the same thing, that they should be on the hook for those 2 units. So I'm gonna weigh in here. So we have $153,467 in affordable housing reserve. They're asking for $300,000, which means basically we would need to take roughly $150,000 from encumbered by the CPA, but not encumbered by a particular bucket. The AHT doesn't have a project to fund right now. We have allocated, town meeting has allocated on our recommendation, $810,000, $750,000 for Maple Woods. Now it's still in our bank account, it hasn't moved, and $60,000 for Habitat for Humanity. So the funding mechanisms are also different. The CPC, CPA funds, we need to recommend to town meeting, and then the town meeting actually makes the allocation. With the Affordable Housing Trust, it's the Affordable Housing Trust recommending to the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen actually make the allocation. We historically, we've gotten these requests in the past. This is my 7th year, and we've seen a couple of these requests. And it comes down to where should the responsibility lie? Should it lie with the CPC and town meeting, or with the AHT and the Board of Selectmen? Now, the Board of Selectmen is in an absolute mess right now. We have 1 selectman in town. Town meeting is us. It's our friends. It's our, and I am not inclined to send unencumbered funds, one, to the Affordable Housing Trust, and two, we have $153,000 in that bucket. We can always have a special town meeting if a project arises. The Affordable Housing Trust has $281,000 plus in their coffers right now. This is just to replenish them. But I truthfully, I don't see the need for it. If there were a project on the table saying, you know, we got to do this and we got to do it fast, you know, that's one thing. And I personally would only be willing to go up to the 153,000 unless there was something really pressing. But I am disinclined to recommend the town meeting that we appropriate funds, especially unencumbered funds, to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I fully agree with you. In fact, my view, first of all, this Affordable Housing Trust, I think they're on the right track, and we need affordable housing. This is an important part of our committee. It's 1/4 of our appropriations, but it's important, and I think we ought to give them what they need. And I know everybody on this committee knows how important affordable housing is. So if something arises, I know they can come back to us and count on us for the balance. So I think we ought to give them what they need. And then I know you can't guarantee anything, but I know if they come back in front of a prudent committee, which we are, okay, they'll get what they need.
I agree. Anyone else?
So Leo, are you saying right now there's nothing that they need, therefore we should?
They need 100,000, they said, but they haven't.
Well, they're asking for 300,000.
I know it, but didn't they say they only need 100?
No, they didn't come up with any figure that they.
No, I didn't hear that.
Yes, I thought that the argument was to have this this money so they could be nimble if something did show up, but there's nothing on the table right now.
That is what they said.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I have a problem with that.
Well,
and I am totally for housing, Leo, as you said. I mean, it's a very important thing in town, but I think it'd be a hard sell at town meeting to say that we're going to give them X number of dollars in case they need it.
Just supposing next week that Spring Hill deals with Habitat, and Habitat says they need 150,000. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. Well, is there a vehicle where the Affordable Trust can come back to us before next year's applications and get 100,000 or 150 to give to Habitat so that this project won't be delayed for years to come?
There is a mechanism. It's special town meeting, and nothing can be done by the town until at least April 8th or whenever the next selectman takes their seat. So this money, nothing, the town can't, the Board of Selectmen isn't a board right now. So if it was something next week, it would have to wait until at least April. But yes, if something were to come to us or something were to come up in town and say, you know, this is a great project, we could always call a special town meeting. I know Wenham does not like to call special town meetings, but that mechanism is available.
Well, let's remember that, you know, depending on the COVID situation, it's very expensive to call a town meeting because of the tent situation.
Yep.
So I think, you know, that's a high bar to call a special town meeting.
It is. Yep.
If we would,
I've been in town 13 years and we've had one special.
Right.
Well, we already have one scheduled for April.
That's not a special. That's annual. It's in May. The special is election, not a meeting.
Okay, it's only an election. Okay,
Yes.
right.
If we appropriate this 300, it would be at the discretion. Patrick, did you say it would be the discretion of the selectmen?
The Affordable Housing Trust, and the Affordable Housing Trust has to send it to the selectmen, and the selectmen do the actual allocation.
Who's running?
Right now we have one selectman. I don't think the nomination has been opened yet. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do in this case. I really value that Affordable Housing Committee and the work they need to do. It's so important to this town, but I don't know what to recommend on this one. So I'd like to hear from some of the other committee members.
All right, I'm more than happy to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I think 300,000 in case doesn't work, 0 doesn't work. So the question is, what is the number? Is it 100K? Is it 125K? I don't know, but it can't be 0 and it can't be all of it. Because I just don't think those are two bad ideas for different reasons. So I don't know what the number is, whether it's 120. I don't know.
The chairman mentioned we had how much, Patrick?
150.
153. I have it here.
Maybe what Peter says makes sense. Maybe we ought to appropriate that.
Well, I would say it's already reserved for affordable housing, whether it be in the CPA or in the AHT, can't be used for anything but affordable housing. Tom, you're going to speak?
Yeah, I mean, that's my feeling. That certainly should not go into any other funds other than that designated for affordable housing. And I think your point is right, that it can only be used for affordable housing. And, we've worked well with the Affordable Housing Trust. I don't think we've had any differences about how it should be spent or what they're doing compared to what we're doing. But correct me if I'm wrong on that. So in a sense, I'd be comfortable with that, but no more than the 150 or 153, whatever that maximum is. And, we could consider, as Peter's saying, 100, just because they don't really need anything. But I'm fine with depleting the affordable housing bucket, but definitely not a penny more.
So then the question is, if we get to the habitat situation, are they going to come to us? Probably. We give them 60. We recommended at a town meeting 60,000, and Affordable Housing Trust also allocated money. So I would think they would probably hit us both up.
I told them to go back to the developer.
Well, if they're going to do the 3 units, I would think that they would, as the museum has said, they're going to seek all available funds.
Right.
So do we want to say no to the Habitat for Humanity, which has been in the affordable housing survey done in town at the meeting at First Church? Habitat for Humanity was basically what everyone said, that's what we want. We want habitat. We want detached structures, single, 2-family, not an apartment building.
Yeah,
that's what was said.
They're expensive, but that's what we want.
And that, yes. And right now we're not under the way that Maplewood stands. 40B doesn't really apply to us right now. We're under contract, so we're not in 40B danger for a hostile 40B. So I'm one to say, let the people let their voice be heard by leaving the funds under town meeting, as opposed to moving them to the Affordable Housing Trust and the Board of Selectmen. That's me personally, because the money's not going to anywhere but affordable housing.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
On Hall Street, the town made the decision to, in Hall Street, we supplied the land and the building, didn't we, to Habitat? We supplied 100%.
Yes, I believe the property was taken on tax liens, and then we
supplied the land. Instead of selling it to a developer, we supplied the land and we paid for the 2 units.
I don't know
One
what
clarification.
Yeah.
I apologize, Leo. The land was definitely provided to Habitat by a private person.
It was?
Yes, I believe that Habitat bought the land from a private person. So some of the funds, and I apologize, it's a couple of years ago, so I don't remember without looking it up. Some of the funds might have been for the purchase, and some of the funds I think are for the construction between the CPC and the AHT. I need to pull out my file to be sure. But the town did not give the land. The town might have given some money towards the purchase, but it was a private landowner sold it at a reduced rate to Habitat.
I see.
But I can certainly look that up if folks would like to reference it. I just don't have that file in front of me.
I agree with Peter, though. I don't want to give them the 300, that more than we have appropriate, but I don't think we ought to give them nothing. And I trust the selectmen, the future selectmen, and especially if they're in the same as the present selectmen. I trust them, and I think we ought to appropriate it, probably what we have for affordable housing. No more than that, though.
I agree with that, Leo.
So are we saying 150,000?
If you want me to make that in the form of a motion, or this anybody else should be heard. I move that we appropriate, that we recommend 150,000 for the Affordable Housing Trust, and
to come from the Affordable Housing Reserve, Community Housing Reserve.
Exactly.
Right, Leo?
Exactly.
Second that.
All right. Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Is the motion okay?
Yeah. Jackie, is the motion okay?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I have it typed up here on the screen. It's from Community Housing Reserve, 150,000 for the AHT transfer.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
All right. We'll random order. We'll go with Peter.
Aye.
Leo.
Aye.
Tom.
No.
Bill.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Elizabeth.
Aye.
And Patrick is a no. So motion passes. I have the vote as 5-2. Is that right, Tom? Were you and I? I'm sorry.
I think it was just you and I, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 5-2. So motion passes. All right. So moving on. We're almost done. So there will be an upcoming meeting next month to go over funding a master plan. It's not a CPA, it's not a CPC meeting. It'll be an informational meeting with the town. I would recommend that we all attend. It's not, again, it will not be a meeting of ours, but just as citizens to talk about creating a master plan for the town, which could potentially open up funding avenues for us. A lot of grant applications, if you don't have a master plan, you can't apply. So I would just recommend, Jackie, do you know the date of that meeting?
The 25th.
Master plan, yeah, February 25th. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, so I just throw that in as the planning board rep here. I mean, we haven't had a master plan done since 1960.
So,
And
so what are you
what's-
complaining about?
Yeah, we're getting
And-
along fine.
And I
What's the
went
problem?
back and read a lot of that master plan, and I'll be damned if there aren't some of the same issues we've been dealing with now that they were dealing with back then. And like it has been said, it does offer access to a lot of different grant money. And, you know, this whole process is going to be, or our master planning process is going to be very much engaging our residents. So it's going to be the residents' master plan, not the planning board's master plan.
Yeah.
That's our goal.
Mhm.
And I believe last year we as a group supported, I believe, I have to go back to the votes, but I believe we supported creating a master plan. And I was on open space, and I know we supported it there as well.
Yeah.
And we were quite surprised that it got voted down by the selectmen. But anyway.
Great.
So February 25th, please, shameless plug, please show up and voice your support or opposition, or just listen, whatever it may be, but it is important.
Yeah.
And then next agenda item is, I've mentioned before, I would really like to make this a monthly committee. I know that may not be how it was sold to you when you signed up. We won't have anything to vote on, but I would like to start bringing in some outside groups, some collaborators that we could start to work with. First, does anyone have objection? And all we need is a quorum. All we need is 5 people for a meeting, so you don't have to attend. Is anyone pro or anti becoming a more regular meeting committee?
I think, you know, Mr. Chairman,
I just love to see you guys.
We love seeing you too.
Mr. Chairman, in the few meetings we've had over the years, it seems to me we're being able to pass out as much money as we have, except for open space.
But
which I hope comes up one of these days. So I mean, I don't know if we need more meetings. We don't have any more money to pass out, unless we go to 4% on the surcharge, or 5.
I think that's what Patrick's getting at, that there are other things we could discuss that maybe would, you know, extend our money.
Be more worthy of our money.
Yeah.
Potentially.
And we'd be able to forecast what's coming up. So we did meet with the Open Space and Rec, and we did go over, we could go back over with them. They've got a matrix of all the Chapter 61 properties, 61A, 61B. So for those that don't know, Chapter 61 is a reduction in your tax rate for farming, open space, recreation. It basically reduces your tax rate to 25% of the regular rate. So they have a matrix of these properties, and the ones that are of particular interest, whether it be for water resources, wildlife. But so we've already met with them once. We met with Greenbelt. I'm just going to throw out there, name a number of committees and groups that we could meet with. The HDC, Historic District Commission, the Affordable Housing Trust, the Wenham Housing Authority, the Rec Department or Rec Board, Open Space and Rec, School Committee, DPW, Board of Selectmen, the CPC Coalition. We could have Stuart Saganor stop by. He'd love to stop by. The Hamilton CPC, we should really be working with them. And then I was thinking the Water Department, because we want to protect our water resources. Mm-hmm. So do people have, well, are you okay with more meetings? And you don't have to attend. We need a quorum of 5 to make a meeting. But are there certain areas of interest that maybe I could focus on to bring some people to us? Not in February, because we'll use the master plan as kind of instead of a meeting, but then maybe start up in March and let Jackie pick the dates based on the town calendar. So are there areas that people are interested in or not interested at all?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
It's probably, I would agree on having a monthly meeting like that. And if we could discuss all those things, there was over a dozen of them that we could talk about, And as long as we, along with those, spend a couple of minutes on lessons, how to be more Yankee-like.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Leo, I always thought you were a Red Sox fan.
Pardon me?
I always thought you were a Red Sox fan.
Yeah, but the tickets are too expensive, so I don't go.
I'll send you a
Hey,
couple.
so Patrick, I thought, I attended the Greenbelt meeting. That was eye-opening to me. I mean, I was just amazed.
Mhm.
I think we should at least meet with the Hamilton Historic District folks or whoever they are, or our counterparts.
Hamilton
The Hamilton CPC.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep.
But a lot of that stuff, you want to talk to the water board, so I'm on the planning committee. We're doing a lot of that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So
the planning committee, I'm sorry, Peter, I forgot to mention
planning
planning.
stuff too.
What's that?
I forgot to mention planning.
Mm.
Yeah.
What conservation?
And conservation, oh, how did I miss them?
And I also sat in on the open space and recreation. I mean, that was fascinating. But there's a lot of other stuff that doesn't really interest me, frankly. I love you folks, but as somebody
once a month though, not every month though.
I used to go to far too many meetings in my work life, and we figured out ways to just eliminate meetings. And Patrick, you want to know the best way to shorten meetings is after discussion, you just say, does anyone disagree? So that you don't have all the conversations by people who agree.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Go ahead. Another thing the chairman can say, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I didn't make that motion. I asked the chairman if he would entertain that motion.
Well, maybe you could just make it, Leo.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Is there any other new business that we want to discuss?
Nope.
Does anyone have anything?
Is the meeting next week, February 4th, not needed?
Right. I think we've passed everything.
Right.
I don't think we have anything
Great.
left to discuss.
Lovely
really
to
well
see
done.
you all. Happy to not see you next week.
Leo,
Hey,
Leo, you get a motion for us?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Is
Who
there a second?
seconded it? I move.
Second.
Second. Elizabeth.
Aye.
Janet.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Tom.
Aye.
Leo.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
And Patrick is a yes as well. Adjourned.
Hey,
Nice
Leo,
job, guys.
Leo, I have a historical question for you.
Go ahead.
So you mentioned the Phillips estate, right? Is that part of